For me, one of the great joys of this hobby is discovering great games by going in cold. I knew nothing about Shovel Knight when I was assigned the review, and it turned out to be one of my favorite games of that generation. Similarly, I volunteered for Horizon Chase Turbo because it looked a little like Outrun, and it became perhaps my favorite single-player racing game. Right around Halloween, I was assigned Ghost Song, a 2013 Kickstarter game I'd never heard of, and immediately fell in love with it. Clearly inspired by Super Metroid and the Souls series, it also has links to Hollow Knight, another game I knew nothing about, but wound up loving. You play as a mysterious armor-wearing figure called Dead Suit, who wakes up on a strange planet and quickly finds themselves helping a group of humans who crash-landed. Dead Suit isn't even sure whether it's a robot, human, or spaceship, but doesn't seem all that interested in finding out. It must travel to 5 spots on the planet and find replacement parts for the human ship, the Gambler, and in doing so, must brave the dangerous creatures and subterranean environments of the world. The game's map is the clearest homage to Super Metroid, with color-coded sectors and lots of breakable walls. You will occasionally come across large, dead robots, which will serve as fast travel points and upgrade stations. More on that in a minute. Save points, while not rare, are less common than I'd like, and death often requires some amount of retraversal. Dead Suit's arm cannon is similar to Samus Aran's with a twist. The cannon will eventually overheat, making shots weaker. However, this is where Dead Suit's secondary attack, a melee attack, comes in handy. An overheated arm cannon means a fully powered melee weapon, so players are encouraged to change up their combat frequently. The more Dead Suit explores, the more melee weapons it will discover, like a spear or a gigantic short-range punch. My favorite, the Pain Wheel, is a boomeranging spiked shield that does a ton of damage fully charged. In addition to melee weapons, Dead Suit will also come across various arm cannon sub-weapons, like a missile or charge shot, that are fun to experiment with. You'll also find modules, which function a lot like the charms in Hollow Knight. Each sub-weapon and module takes a certain amount of energy to equip, and Dead Suit's energy pool is tied to its level, so you're also encouraged to find a combo that suits your playstyle. I eventually started foregoing multiple sub-weapons for more modules. Defeated enemies will drop Nanogel, which is Ghost Song's currency. Nanogel can be used to buy items from the Gambler's trading post or another hard-to-find shop, but its primary purpose is to level up Dead Suit at fast travel points. You can increase 3 traits which will affect Dead Suit's base stats, including HP, attack power, stamina, available energy, etc. The trick is that the cost goes up with every level. As with so many games these days, Ghost Song incorporates aspects of the Souls series into its design. Combat is difficult and demands precision. Most enemies hit hard, and my first few hours with the game were spent tenuously observing every new creature I came across. You'll find healing items that can be activated at any time and are refilled at save points, and you'd better get used to using them. Dying, of course, results in you dropping a chunk of your nanogel. How much depends on the difficulty setting, whereupon you must hike back to retrieve it, hoping not to die en route. Unfortunately, there is no bank, as in Hollow Knight, where you can save up a large store of nanogel in case you hit a particularly rough choke point. The bosses, of course, are where the real challenges lie. Several are optional, but will usually net you a nifty sub-weapon or module for the trouble. The bosses who guard replacement parts for the Gambler, though, are tough customers and often come down to good old wars of attrition. You'll be avoiding their attacks more often than actually attacking, which does get old, but that's how Hollow Knight was as well. Playing with your loadout certainly helps, but there are no fights, boss or otherwise, where you can't brute force it. The world itself is gorgeous if somewhat undercooked. To be clear, every frame of Ghost Song is unbelievably gorgeous, and the environments themselves are often completely alien. Creature noises echo in the caverns, Dead Suit's legs become covered in slime or fluids as she runs over messy terrain, darkness gives way to surprising touches of color. This planet feels more alive than most video game locations. I especially liked the few outdoor areas and the oppressive machine city of the Junk Pit. Other areas, though, feel a bit empty, lacking purpose other than being a road to a particular destination. There is a small underwater section that winds up being a peaceful but weird tangent that's over too quickly and doesn't connect to anything else. The game's music is mostly atmospheric or ambient, but the few musical themes are serene and low-key. I enjoyed them, but if you're looking for the kinds of tunes you'd hear in other platformers, you won't find them here. Dead Suit will come across various human and android characters, mostly associated with the Gambler, who will engage in conversation. I always enjoyed these interactions, some of them trigger events elsewhere, and the impressive writing gave each character a solid personality. All are struggling with questions of identity and purpose, and while Dead Suit is probably the perfect reflection of those yearnings, their talks always left me a bit cold towards Dead Suit itself. It is, for all intents and purposes, a silent protagonist who occasionally responds, but just as often answers with an ellipsis. Occasionally frustrating difficulty aside, there are a few things I disliked about Ghost Song. First, in order to swap out your sub-weapons and modules, you must hold down on the D-pad to turn Dead Suit off. After that, you can go into the sub-menu and swap equipment around. The problem here is that during this time, the game doesn't actually pause, so you can't do this during a normal fight, much less a boss fight. I know that not being able to pause your game is a Souls thing, but it's not one I welcome. You can press the plus button to actually pause, but it's a different screen. Platforming on very small chunks of ground is weirdly difficult, and Dead Suit will often slide off the side as if these tiny ledges are rounded. From a technical perspective, the frame rate will occasionally chug while simply running around, although this never affected combat encounters, in my experience anyway. When moving between color-coded sectors of the map, the load times can be noticeably long compared to moving between screens within a given sector. Despite these misgivings, I found myself blowing through Ghost Song with the enthusiasm I normally reserve for new Shantae games. There have been frustrating boss fights, sure, but that was my experience with Hollow Knight too, and it's a similar feeling here. Finally beating these tough-as-nails bosses gives you a great feeling of accomplishment and relief, although they're probably not for everybody. It's definitely worth a shot if you enjoy Metroid games, Hollow Knight, or the Souls series.